Boldwood presents Life's a Beach, written by Portia MacIntosh and read by Karen Cass. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Chapter 1. Your wedding day is easily supposed to be one of the happiest days of your life. But if you want to make absolutely sure it is, you can always spend £2,500 on a horse-drawn Cinderella-style carriage. It's top of the range, the hotel wedding coordinator assures me. It's a gorgeous ivory fairy tale pumpkin carriage with a stunning white upholstery interior. It even has a little crown on top. It's always in incredibly high demand. It sounds beautiful, I reply. If you do decide to have your wedding here, we can make arrangements to suit your big day, whether you want picking up from home, taking to the church, or here if you would prefer one of our non-religious ceremonies, which I highly recommend. Churches can be so drab. Of course, there is an additional cost per mile, but we can get down to things like that later. Shall we head inside? Annette is the wedding coordinator at the Chadwick Hotel in York. We're currently standing outside the 5-star hotel, admiring the Grade 2 listed building from the gravel pathway that leads up to it. It's a gorgeously warm, sunny day, the kind where you can comfortably get away with wearing a strappy sundress, but not quite hot enough to leave you looking a mess. A few degrees hotter than this, and my long, straight blonde hair would be half frizzy, half stuck to the sides of my face hair instead. Today is just perfect, though, so it's sundresses, sandals, straight hair, and smear-free makeup. Yes, I reply excitedly. Let's do it. So, the hotel has actually been open for more than a century. As you can see, it boasts an ornate terracotta facade, typical of high Victorian architecture, and the stone cupola makes for a stunning backdrop for outside photos. I smile and nod because, if I'm being honest, I have no idea what any of that means. It is a gorgeous old building, though, surrounded by large gardens full of flowers, huge ponds with grand fountains at their heart, and trees in all directions. It's hard to believe we're so close to the city, and impossible not to get carried away, thinking about pulling up in front of the huge doors, having my photo taken with my dad, and then coming back out here after tying the knot to take gigabytes worth of photos with my future husband and everyone we love. Beautiful, I say simply. There's just no other word for it. Once inside the large lobby, Annette picks up a wedding pack that's waiting for me at reception, before leading me past the grand wooden staircase that sits in the centre of the room. I marvel at the spectacular light that hangs at the centre of the atrium, a large double-drum chandelier suspended high above, captivating me so powerfully I nearly bump into a hotel employee coming the other way. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," I blurt. "I was mesmerised." "No worries," he says with a laugh. Annette laughs gently. "You'd be surprised how often that happens," she reassures me. "Come, let me show you the function room." The function room sounds like a rather bland concept. Well, many places have a function room, from restaurants to town halls, so the only real expectation I have is space for tables. But this function room surely deserves a grander title because it is everything. It's maybe 3 times the height of a regular room, with enormous arch-shaped windows that flood the place with the most beautiful natural light. "Ah, Lady Penelope, I see the windows have caught your eye," she says before she laughs to herself quietly. "Do people ever call you Lady Penelope?" "Only all the time. That's why I usually go by my nickname, Peach. Otherwise I get Lady Penelope from Thunderbirds or Penelope Pitstop from Wacky Races. I thought I was in the clear by the time I reached uni, but then that movie called Penelope, about the girl with the pig snout, came out, and one lad caught on and teased me about it. I never thought I'd reach my 30s and still be dealing with it. You're the first, I reply, hovering in the middle ground between a polite lie and raging sarcasm. That's so funny, she says. Anyway, the windows. If I just push a few buttons... Annette taps her tablet screen a few times before blackout blinds descend, plunging us into darkness, but only for a split second before the ceiling comes to life with delicate little fairy lights, like a dark night sky full of twinkling stars. A few more illuminate the ivory tulle curtains that adorn the walls in different colours. Disco mode, she says with a smile. For the evening party, we recommend our in-house DJ who previously had a residency at, one of those hip holiday destinations. I'm certainly not cool enough to know what it was. I do hear he's very good, though, so you can request him for an additional cost. Oh, wow, I say, still staring up at the ceiling. It's about all I can say, with my mouth hanging open like this. I've visited a lot of wedding venues recently, but this one is by far the most beautiful. It's just a cut above the rest. If you want to take a peep at your brochure, she suggests, we can look at packages, see what works for you. Let's take a seat at one of the tables. The packages are named Silver, Gold, and Platinum. That's why this place is a cut above the rest, because they don't even have a lowly bronze package, and they don't actually have their prices in the brochure. That's when you know something is expensive. We can cater to all dietary requirements, she says, and we're quite flexible, for an additional fee. She keeps saying, for an additional fee, and I can see this wedding getting more and more expensive by the moment. You were thinking 60 guests for the wedding breakfast and 100 in the evening? She double-checks. That's right, I reply. That's not a problem. Over the page, you'll find our Prosecco packages. Annette wrinkles her nose with disgust. But most of our guests opt for champagne for an additional fee, she adds. But it's totally worth rejigging the budget for. Money isn't going to be an issue, I say casually. You only do this sort of thing once, right? That's the plan, she replies with a smile. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't had some repeat customers, though. Annette drifts somewhere else for a few seconds, somewhere darker than planning my wedding. I imagine she's thinking about couples who have been and gone and been again. Annette looks so effortlessly classy, and her makeup is absolutely perfect. Somehow, even though her eyes deceive the rest of her face, it's the flawless makeup that manages to keep her looking both professional and happy. Her eyes eventually snap back to me, and her smile finds its way to her face again. I imagine it is kind of depressing, being the man behind the curtain, making the big day happen. But someone has to arrange for the swan shit to be cleaned up, I guess. Yes, for an additional fee, there was the option to hire swans for something that wasn't entirely clear. Speaking of happy couples, where is the groom? Has he left all the planning to you? She asks, in a sort of friendly way, like she's just making conversation. I doubt she actually wants to know. Matthew has work, I reply. He works such long hours, so I'm doing all of the preliminary work. That's very sweet of you, she says. I'll bet he knows he's got himself a good one. I hope so, I say with a smile. Do your families get along well? Annette asks. For the most part, I reply. Annette nods knowingly. Because we here at the Chadwick understand families can be hard work, never mind when you try to merge two of them. And with all the champagne our happy couples usually purchase, there might well be certain individuals that are best suited, shall we say, out of each other's eye line, she explains. Our seating planners work with you to decide where everyone should be. We also have temporary pillars, in keeping with the decor of the room, of course, that we can place to prevent people from seeing each other. Oh, that sounds fantastic, I reply. Our uncles tend to butt heads about Brexit any time we put them in the same room, so that sounds like just what we need. Perfect, she replies. Would you like to see the honeymoon suite? Yes, please, I reply. Is it included in the packages? Only in the platinum package. Otherwise, this does run an additional cost, but I'm sure you'll agree it's worth it. Please do follow me, she instructs, leading me out of the function room. So, are you keeping your name, or are you going to be Mrs. Hemsworth? Annette asks, making polite conversation while we're in the lift. I'd really like to be Mrs. Hemsworth, I reply. I am a firm believer in taking the man's name, she says approvingly. Penelope Hemsworth. That sounds beautiful. It really does. Here we are, the honeymoon suite, Annette announces as she opens the door. Wow, the honeymoon suite is bigger than my flat. A large 4-poster bed is the centrepiece of the room. At the foot of it, a freestanding bath is just crying out for me to climb in and relax. Not right now, obviously. I don't think Annette would be all that impressed if I did. The room is somehow traditional but modern. Classic but clean. Everything looks brand new, even the antiques. This is just wow, I say. We get that a lot, Annette replies. At present it isn't set up for guests, but when it is, we fill the room with champagne, fresh fruit, chocolates, etc., and of course the finest products for the bath, with big, fresh, fluffy robes to cuddle up in. Our happy couples never want to leave the room, but it's because of the facilities, not each other. I laugh because I'm pretty sure she's joking, but her face suggests a real pride in her work that makes me think this could be true. I walk over to the large windows to see what kind of view the room boasts. Excuse me, Annette says, stepping in front of me. The windows aren't windows at all. They're doors, doors that open out onto a private terrace with vistas stretching across the grounds. This just keeps getting better and better. I take a deep breath, sucking in the summer air, savouring the smell of the flowers and the heat of the stone wall that surrounds the terrace. So, do you think you can see yourself getting married here, future Mrs. Hemsworth? Annette asks hopefully. I can, I reply. I really can. Everything here is just perfect, beyond perfect. It makes all the other venues I've visited look positively crap in comparison. It just has it all. The setting, the room, the menu, this room. God, this room! Now that I'm in it, I don't want to leave. Yep, this really is the perfect place to get married. So it's a shame I'm not actually getting married. Perfect, she replies. Well, allow me to give you a copy of our prices to peruse at your leisure. You'll find they're quite competitive. Eesh, the only way these prices would be competitive is if they were put forward for a competition to find the most expensive wedding venue. That's great, I say. I'll take this to Matthew, see what he thinks of it all. I'm sure he'll be as charmed as I am. Let's hope so, Annette replies. If not, I'm sure you can twist his arm. By the size of that rock on your finger, I think he might just do anything to make you happy. Ah, yes, my super fake engagement ring, given to me by my entirely fictional fiancé, Matthew Hemsworth, but actually bought for myself from ASOS. And yes, I did name him after Matthew McConaughey and Chris Hemsworth because, come on, that man would certainly be marriage material. I say goodbye to Annette, promising to call, even though I know I won't. I do jobs like this all the time. I don't know why it's left me feeling so blue today. Oh well, at least I've found the perfect venue, should I ever want to get married. And at least I know to start saving like yesterday to ever stand a chance of tying the knot in a venue like this. But to be honest, I've been single for so long now that finding a man feels just as likely as finding the fortune to pay for this place. Don't give up the day job, Peach. At least I get to play at getting married, even if I don't actually get to do it. Chapter 2. Growing up in a town on the outskirts of York, I'd always dreamed of living in the centre. Then when I landed my dream job and the commute started to get on my nerves, it made sense to leave the family home and find somewhere of my own. Well, I say on my own. It's 2021 and I'm a millennial. We're the generation who can't afford deposits or to have babies. They say it's because we're frittering our wages on brunch and latte macchiatos, like forking out for Eggs Benedict multiple times a month is why none of us have any savings, and not because we have to pay rent. But don't get me started. Luckily, I managed to find a flat share, but not just any old flat. One located on York's most famous street, the Shambles. Like something fresh out of a movie, the long, narrow medieval lane is lined with overhanging timber-framed buildings, some of which date back as far as the 14th century. With its quirky shops and its resemblance to Diagon Alley, the street is a tourist hotspot. You get to the front door down a tiny snickle way, which I love. It feels so hidden away. I could never afford a place like that on my own, but thankfully, when a friend of a friend was looking for someone to share a place with, I got in touch. It was all going so well until recently, when my flatmate decided she was moving to London to live with her boyfriend. Great news for her, terrible news for me. Our landlord, was on my case right away, asking if I had someone to take her place, or would I be paying the other half of the rent too? The latter was unfortunately off the table, but so was the former, it turned out, when I started trying to find someone to rent the other room. So our landlord put the flat back on the market, which meant it was only a matter of time before someone rented it from under me. Amazingly, though, he hasn't had any takers yet, and with only days to spare, I have managed to find someone, my amazing sister Di, to move in with me. As soon as we sign the paperwork, the place is ours for another 12 months. Obviously, I'm delighted because my only other option would have been to move back in with Mum and Dad again, and no one wants to move back home, do they? I worried about my parents when I moved out originally. Di did too. Well, with both of their children moving out in the same week, you would think that would have had some sort of impact. I'd heard all about empty nest syndrome, and with Mum especially being the typical mother hen type, I thought it would hit her the hardest. I don't know what I was thinking. There's no empty nest. They couldn't get rid of the nest fast enough. The week Di and I moved out, my mum took over Di's room to make a sewing workshop, and my dad commandeered my room to give himself an office. I don't begrudge my parents taking back rooms in their own house. I just didn't expect them to do it the week we left, and to seem so over the moon about it. In a roundabout way, it's a good thing. I was worried they would be upset, and they weren't, so that's good, but they were genuinely happy to see us go, so that they could start the next phase of their lives. Still, at least they let me come back for dinner, but it doesn't come without its strings. This desk, here in my childhood bedroom, is the only thing left that is mine. I twirl in my old desk chair before pulling out the handle on the side so that I can bob backwards and forwards in it. Back when I was studying, when presented with a frustrating problem, or when I was stressing about anything, I do love to stress, I would do this to try and relax. Not unlike a rocking chair, but a sort of sad millennial version, preparing me for a lifetime of stressing in desk chairs. Funny that I would do this to relax, because that first tip back of the chair always takes me by surprise, making me feel like the whole thing is going to fall backward, my life flashing before my eyes. But every time, I live to see another day. It's not so much that I'm stressed today, though, more that I'm just frustrated at having the same conversation again and again with my dad. I'm telling you, I got a text saying my PayPal account had been compromised and needed to verify my information to take control of my account again, my dad insists. David Cole, Big Dave to his mates, is 68 years old and has only recently discovered the internet. I remember when I was 13 or 14, getting my first dial-up modem and being blown away by the World Wide Web, going into chat rooms, which in hindsight seems like a terrible idea, and playing games, reading about anything and everything, messaging my friends. Well, my dad is going through that phase now. But he's somehow more technologically inept than a child at the turn of the millennium and on a world wide web that is far more tangled with, well, I don't need to tell you what the internet is like these days. It's all misinformation and porn, neither of which you want to see in the hands of a technophobe pushing 70. Right, but do you use PayPal? I ask him, already knowing the answer.
No.
Do you have an account? I continue.
Well, no, he replies, but
it's a scam, Dad, just like the text you got supposedly from HMRC and the email from your Wakandan uncle who died and left you his fortune. I can never quite get it to sink in with him that these types of messages are usually spam, and to always just assume they are. Some of them are very convincing, others not so much. At least he checks with me, even if it is pretty much every time I come here for dinner.
It would have been nice, though, wouldn't it?
He says, staring thoughtfully into the distance, obviously thinking about what he would have done with his millions. If the uncle you didn't know you had from the entirely fictional country of Wakanda had died and left you millions, sure, Dad, that would have been nice. I can't help but laugh.
And I thought I'd get less cheek tonight, with your sister being on holiday, he points out with a chuckle.
She's been texting me from Greece, telling me to be extra cheeky while she's away, I joke. Di isn't just my little sister. She's my best friend too. She's only 3 years younger than me, but growing up, thanks to her being smart and my parents' finances changing for the better, we wound up going to different schools. This didn't drag us apart though, it just made us closer. She's currently away on holiday, well, at a destination wedding for one of her old school friends. Do destination weddings count as holidays? I suppose they do when you stay for a week. She must be having a good time because I've hardly heard from her. Dinner's ready, my mum shouts from the bottom of the stairs.
Lasagna tonight,
Dad says as he pulls himself to his feet. Oh, I can't wait, I say. I'm going to stick my face in it.
Let me get mine out of the dish first, he says with a smile.
I follow Dad's lead downstairs. As he walks down the stairs, he holds onto the banister on one side and steadies himself with his other hand on the wall. I feel a heaviness in my heart. No one likes to think of their parents struggling as they get older. Do you need a hand, Dad? I ask, wincing as I watch him carefully shuffle down the stairs, terrified he's going to fall. Mum reappears at the bottom of the stairs. Oh, he's fine. He just had a few too many with lunch, she says with a laugh and a bat of her hand. I breathe a sigh of relief. I thought you couldn't walk, I say. Well, he can't, my mum replies, but it is only because he's a bit pissed. Come on, dinner. Retirement really suits my parents. It's nice. My mum, Julie, spends her days sewing and cooking and doing all the housewifey stuff she wishes she'd spent her entire life doing. My dad spends his surfing the web and drinking, apparently. I'm not ready to look after you yet, I say with a smile. I'm kidding, of course. But then again, I'm definitely not ready to look after them. I'm still not all that great at looking after myself. You could forego having kids to look after us, Mum says through a smile. I'm sure she's kidding. Di and I could take one of you each, I suggest. Not that I'm sure which one I'd want. Actually, now that I can smell the lasagna, I'll take Mum.
Di is my favourite anyway, Dad teases. She's bringing me a big bottle of ouzo. Are you sure you don't want me to pick her up from the airport?
It's okay, I have a job at Moat, that fancy hotel near the airport, I reply. We all take our seats at the table as Mum serves the lasagna and Dad pops open another beer. I can't resist grabbing a piece of ciabatta bread while I wait. Another wedding gig? Mum asks. How did it go today? Would Matthew have liked it? I can't help but smile. Everyone knows all about Matthew Hemsworth, my fake groom. Intimidatingly tall and impossibly handsome, Matthew is one of the big wigs at Owen's department stores, but don't look it up online because he isn't really, obviously because he's made up. I did think that sounded like a good job, though. It means he has money, so can afford fancy weddings, And it sounds like a dream to be married to someone who can get me employee discount on Yves Saint Laurent, because unless I get stuff like that from work, I can't exactly afford it on the regular. I know I probably sound deluded, but my job requires me to be convincing, so it makes sense I should have a detailed cover story. I'm a mystery shopper, which basically means I am paid to go to shops, restaurants, hotels, etc. to pretend to be a customer. I'll usually have a brief telling me what I need to do while I'm there. Sometimes it is my job to go through the motions with a hotel wedding coordinator, planning a fictional wedding with them before I write my report, which ultimately makes its way through my employers and back to the hotel in question. It's such a fun job, and best of all, it allows me to enjoy the finer things in life, even though I can't afford them. It isn't a wedding one this time, just a regular hotel visit, I explain. They have this super romantic suite that comes packed with food and drink, totally luxurious. I can't wait. It's a shame you don't have a man to share it with, my mum half teases as she places my plate down in front of me. Oh, isn't it just? I reply sarcastically, glancing over at Dad, who already has tomato running down the front of his shirt. He dabs at it with the piece of preemptive kitchen roll Mum must have left under his side plate. You get red sauce out by dabbing white sauce on it, I tell him. He points at me as though I've just hit the nail on the head.
Right, he replies.
Wrong, Mum chuckles, taking the kitchen roll from him before he can dab it in his dinner. Just take your shirt off. What? No, I reply, at the table.
I'm spending more and more time naked these days, Dad says. Your mum too. Our therapist says we've spent so long raising kids that we're no longer acquainted with one another's naked bodies.
Therapist? I say, trying not to sound too worried. Are you okay? We're fine, Mum insists reassuringly. It isn't couples counselling or anything like that.
It's a sex therapist, Dad says confidently.
Sex is a perfectly normal and natural thing. No one should feel ashamed for having it, except children talking to their parents about having it, and even more so, parents talking to their children about having it. I should probably set off to pick up Di now so I'm not late, I joke uncomfortably.
I thought you were picking her up tomorrow,
Dad replies, clearly not getting the joke. But then he gets it, and he laughs.
Oh!
They're lucky this lasagna is good, or I'd be out of here. Mum's cooking is always so amazing. In a way I've never been able to emulate, even though she gave me a book of recipes the day I moved out. I think, short of them doing it on the table in front of me, I'd struggle to walk away from this table without clearing my plate. You must have missed her, Mum points out. It's like the two of you are joined at the hip. Yeah, I really have, I reply. And seeing as I don't have a man, I thought she could visit Moat with me. We can have a girly night, eat all the chocolate, watch movies. She'll love that, my mum says. And it will be great practice for when the two of you live together. Yes, I say excitedly. It's timed so well, with my landlord not finding anyone to rent the place yet and Di's rental agreement being up next week.
Yes, but no one wants to pay that rent to live there, not when there are so many fancy new apartments for much cheaper, Dad offers up. I suppose he has a point. I like the place. It has charm, I reply. Plus it really does feel like my home now. Well, don't forget that this was your home first, Mum says. I try not to, but it's hard when there's not a trace of me left, I point out, through an amused grin. It will be nice, the two of you living together again, Mum says. And I'm sure you'll have a lovely time tomorrow. Do you both fancy coming over for dinner on Sunday? That would be nice, I reply. We can celebrate me and Di moving in together. Or commiserate you both being homeless, Dad says, if your landlord flogs it before you sign on the dotted line. The women in this family always fly far too close to the sun. Cheers.
Dad raises his beer before swigging the last from the bottle. Di and I had previously talked about living together, but with her already renting a place, moving into my flat with me just wasn't on the cards. But things have lined up perfectly now. I need someone to move in with me, Di needs somewhere to live, and it really will be nice to live together again. I'm so lucky to have a sister and best friend rolled into one, and there's no one I'd rather spend a night eating and drinking with, except the legendary Matthew Hemsworth maybe, but he's almost too good to be true. Chapter 3. I've never actually visited Moat Hotel before, despite it having been open for 2 years now and me living and working not too far away. I've driven past it a bunch of times, and every time I do, I can't take my eyes off the place. It's always been my dream to have a job here. You know how, when you need to stay in a hotel near the airport, you usually just check into a cheap and cheerful Hotel Premier travel-in lodge kind of place? Well, Moat was built by an eccentric billionaire who decided that the world was missing a sort of luxury take on a budget hotel. Somewhere you could live it up rather than just crash for the night, and with a popular bar, restaurant and spa thrown into the mix. Having looked at the prices, this certainly isn't somewhere your average person would stay the night before a flight, unless of course they get to sneak in like I do. It's a massive, brilliant white building, floodlit with the brightest black light, which gives it such a luxurious modern finish. I can see it glowing across 2 roads from the airport window I'm peering out of. I stroll a little further to look out of the window that faces the runway. It seems strange that I haven't heard from Di yet. She said she'd call me just before takeoff. I locate a departures and arrivals board, find Di's flight, but there's just a blank space next to it. That can't be good. "Excuse me," I say at one of the info desks. "I'm supposed to be picking up my sister. She's flying home from Greece, but I haven't heard from her, and I can't seem to work out when her flight is due in." "Oh, that must be one of the flights held up by the strikes," she explains.
Strikes?
I hear a male voice ask from behind me. "Yes, staff strikes," she replies. "Unfortunately, you'll just have to wait for further updates. I can't say what's happening. I don't really know myself."
I suppose there are worse places to be stuck than Greece?
The man behind me says brightly.
Thanks.
"Are you waiting for someone too?" I ask as I turn around. I didn't know who to expect. I don't think I had any expectations at all, which is why I'm a little taken aback when I clap eyes on him. He's tall, really tall, maybe 6'2". I actually have to shift my gaze upward to make eye contact with him. He reminds me of Zac Efron, just a little, but not an old school High School Musical Zac from the noughties. I'm talking the circa 2020 big, buff, manly version with the dark hair, the rugged beard, and those piercing blue eyes shining through.
"Yeah, I was supposed to be picking up my mate," he replies. "He's lucky I love him. This quick favour isn't turning out to be all that quick."
He laughs, and I melt. A good-looking man who does favours and is not only polite, but also comfortable enough to say he loves other men. I wonder what the catch is.
"How about you?"
he asks. My brain, a little confused by what I can only file under lust at first sight, takes a breather. It's tuned out. It's just me and the voice in my head, staring at him, hoping he doesn't notice how weird I'm being for what feels like eternity, but in reality is probably only a second or two.
"Are you picking someone up too?"
he prompts. Perhaps I was staring for longer than I thought. "Yes, sorry, my sister," I say. I have such an impressive way with words.
"Last time I offered to do anyone a favour,"
he says with a smile.
"I'm always too quick to do favours. Well, no more. Unless you need something."
Oh, and he makes naff little jokes too. I love naff little jokes. They're like 80% of my vocab when my mute button hasn't been hit by someone handsome. "Can you go for dinner with me?" I joke. To ask a man out to dinner would be totally out of character for me, but to make a joke that doesn't really land, resulting in things feeling kind of awkward, is totally my style. The man raises one eyebrow curiously. I should probably say more things now to make that less odd. My sister was supposed to be having dinner with me at the hotel over the road, but now that I don't know when she's going to get here, I'll have to go by myself. I explain as casually as I can. It was just a joke, don't worry about it. Smooth as silk. From an awkward joke to a babbling mess of an explanation. Oh, and in my attempt to sound casual, I've probably gone a little too far. Not just like I don't care, but like I really don't care. Why can't I just say something normal?
It's a shame you're joking, he replies, because I'm going to have to go back to propping up the cafe here all on my own.
Does he actually want to have dinner with me? Him? With me? Obviously, he's knocking on the doors of being a 10, and it's not that I think I'm some kind of monster, but I've given off pure weirdo vibes since the second I turned around. I don't know whether to retreat or double down. You are welcome to join me, my mouth says, oblivious to the fact my brain was thinking it over. If we're both waiting for the same flight, and you're at a loose end.
I'd love to, he says. We can wander over now and keep an eye on our phones in case we get any calls.
Sounds great, I say. I awkwardly shift my weight between my feet for a few seconds. Okay, let's go then. I didn't intend for that to sound like a question.
Yeah, let's do it,
he replies. He actually sounds excited, but in reality, I bet he's just hungry. We make small talk as we make the short journey from the airport to the hotel across the road.
So, where are you from?
He asks. I live in York, I reply. Grew up just outside the city, went to uni there. I never wandered far. You?
Almost identical, but I'm a West Yorkshire version, he explains. My family live in Kirkstall. I've got a place in Leeds city centre, in Bridgewater Place, if you know it.
The Dalek, I say, to show that I not only know the building, but I know its nickname.
That's the one, he replies. I rent a room from my mate. He's got a penthouse on the 30th floor. As apartments go, it's so out of my league. I could never afford it on an Oliver Strand salary.
You work at Oliver Strand? I say, the department store.
Yeah, he replies, in PR, but they don't pay you enough to shop there.
He laughs, and I laugh with him. But he can't truly know how funny this is, because Oliver Strand is a big fancy department store like Harvey Nichols or John Lewis or Owen's, which is where the man of my dreams, Matthew Hemsworth, works. Well, don't worry about paying for dinner tonight, I tell him as we walk through the doors at Moat.
Oh, I wasn't pleading poverty, he insists. I just didn't want you to think I was a rich dick living in a penthouse. My friend is the rich dick.
He smiles. I love his smile. I also love that he's a little bit embarrassed to live in such a nice place. I totally relate to that. As much as I'm playing a part when I go on these fancy mystery visits and get to enjoy all the expensive products I wouldn't have otherwise, there's a little voice in the back of my head telling me that I'm a fraud. What's a working-class girl like me doing in a place like this? I feel lucky more than anything, but there's always a tiny niggling feeling of awkwardness. I'm glad he has it too. It's not that, I say quickly, reassuring him with my smile. I'm not paying for it either. He stops in his tracks.
This isn't something weird, is it? He asks, because there's no such thing as a free lunch or dinner, especially in a place like this.
Relax, I insist. I'm here for work. I can tell you all about it over dinner. He eyeballs me suspiciously. Looks like I'm not the only one thinking things are too good to be true. I promise, I insist. I'll just nip into the ladies and then we'll get a drink.
Okay. I'm so intrigued now, I'll risk it, he says with a smile. But before you disappear, what's your name?
I laugh. I can't believe we've managed to get this far without swapping names. I'm Peach, I say. Lovely to meet you. I put on a sort of faux formal voice, keen to focus on the humour of the situation rather than the awkwardness.
It's nice to meet you too, he replies. I'm Matt.
I can't help but purse my lips as my eyebrows shoot up towards the ceiling, which is seriously high in this swanky hotel lobby, but I can't even get into the decor right now because, did you hear that? He said his name is Matt. Matt, who works at a department store. I'll be right back, I say, forcing a normal smile which can't possibly look normal, hoping he hasn't clocked my odd reaction.
Okay, see you soon,
he calls after me, before playfully adding,
hopefully.
Once I am safely inside the sanctuary of the ladies' toilets, I wash my hands and touch up my lipstick with the only one in my bag. When I left my room, I put on a deep red shade, but the only one I have in my bag is hot pink. Luckily, my lipstick has been fading from the inside out, so when I top it up with the pink, it gives a sort of fashionable fade effect that you can guarantee I wouldn't be able to achieve if I set out to do it. Ugh, I wish I'd tried harder, but I thought I was having dinner with my sister, not a man. I did make an effort, because how could I not at a place like this? But there's a difference between how you dress for your sister and how you dress for a date, even when you are dolled up. Thankfully, I've just had my buttery blonde highlights topped up, and my hair is still enjoying the after effects of being styled by a professional, even though I've washed it a couple of times since. I did actually wash it a matter of minutes after checking in because I wanted to try out the fancy French hair products in the bathroom and the even fancier hairdryer that was set up at the dressing table. I didn't exactly go over the top with my makeup, though. No one takes the time to contour their forehead for a sibling. And I'm wearing a pair of leather look pants, thankfully it's a cool summer evening or I'd be needing help peeling them off, and a white silky off-the-shoulder top. Appropriate for where we are, but it's probably not going to have Matt rushing to help me get out of them, is it? I once read in a magazine that wearing trousers on a date gives off the message that you're not interested. I hate stuff like that. It's such bullshit. In the same magazine, I also read that you're supposed to slap your moisturiser into your face to stop you from looking old. I knew sexism could be harmful, but wow, hit yourself in the face, show men they have easy access. I'm going to stop reading the trashy magazines they have at the hairdressers while I'm there. I might start a petition for books instead of magazines. The amount of time I'm there, I'd certainly get through one. I don't know why I'm blabbing on about dates. This isn't a date at all, is it? It might look like one, but it isn't. It's just two strangers who met at the airport taking pity on each other, that's all. But that doesn't explain why I'm so nervous. Chapter 4. One of the amazing things about Moat, and there are many, is that the restaurant and bar area have a sort of Wimbledon-style roof, which means that on a gorgeous summer night like tonight, you are essentially sitting outside. It's not only great for enjoying the gorgeous evening sky, but you also get to see the planes taking off and landing. Though not my sister's plane, obviously. Being next to a runway was bound to be noisy, but by making it part of the view, they've somehow managed to style it out and own it. It's a feature, not a nuisance. Amazing that if you put a fancy spin on anything, people will lap it up. To be honest, I'm not all that bothered with the way things have worked out. Well, Di gets to extend her holiday, even if it's only by half a day, and I get to have dinner with Matt. We're currently sitting at the bar, waiting until our table is ready. Our drinks have just been placed down in front of us, and they look spectacular. I'm having a woo-woo, which is absolutely packed with glitter, making it look like a red and gold snow globe. I don't know what Matt's drink is exactly. It's called a Smoky Joe. I can tell that it's smoky, though, because some kind of actual smoke is billowing out of the tall glass.
Can I at least get the drinks?
Matt asks in hushed tones, while the barman is off keying our drinks into the computer behind the bar. They're paid for too, I whisper back. I'll explain in a second, I promise.
So,
the barman claps his hands together.
Would you like the drinks to be placed on your table tab, or would you like to pay for them now?
I'll pay now, please, I reply, and can I get a VAT receipt too?
Of course you can, he says, suddenly even brighter than he was before. I'll be right back. I am frustratingly intrigued.
Matt groans as we wait for my receipt.
Come on, let's go sit on the viewing terrace so you can tell me all about it.
Don't get too excited, I insist as we walk over, weaving in and out of the tables. It's nothing interesting. I just have a job that has its perks.
Pretty decent perks,
he says, nodding at our surroundings. I feel like this may be overhyped now, but basically, my job is to go to places, try out the facilities, and then write a report on it.
For a newspaper or a website?
He asks curiously. It's actually for the business, I reply. So I get to eat in restaurants, stay in hotels, stuff like that, and then I write about the experience so that they can learn from it.
Wow, that's pretty sweet, he says. So you just get to lap up all the freebies while you're doing your job?
Yep, I reply with a slight smile, not wanting to seem like I'm showing off, but it is pretty amazing. I don't mention the wedding assignments, because something about that is especially sad. When I'm staying in hotels, I'm not pretending to stay in them. I actually get a room, sleep in it, and enjoy the facilities. But obviously, when I'm doing a wedding visit, I am straight up pretending to get married. And I don't even have a boyfriend, so there's something so delusional about it. I definitely get the better jobs in the office because I'm good at role play and thinking of things to say to keep up the act. It's nice to be appreciated, but I do still feel like a bit of a loser pretending to be loved up. I suppose I should probably be a bit more upfront about this part of my job, because last time I was seeing someone, which feels like forever ago, he found a stack of brochures under my coffee table and I had to try and explain them away. The reality was that I just hadn't got around to recycling them because I'm kind of lazy sometimes. To me, it was no different to blasting my hair with dry shampoo for the 5th day in a row or leaving empty bottles of bubble bath around the edge of the tub. But given the wedding crazy rap women get, I don't think he believed me, and we didn't last long after that. Top tip, I start. If you go to a bar, always ask for a VAT receipt. I have to for work, but the savvier employees know that the mystery diners and mystery visitors have to ask for VAT receipts, so they'll usually treat you better.
That's kind of depressing, he replies. People will try harder if they think you're someone important and not just a regular customer.
I suppose we all do stuff like that sometimes.